What about a landline?
You're listening to The Happiness Agenda. I'm your host, Steve Sapato, and we're going to be talking about all kinds of things today, from things that we struggle with to things we've overcome, and finding our own happiness and how we help other people as we move forward in life. And isn't that the greatest pleasure, is helping others? And today I have the wonderful pleasure of introducing you to a phenomenal woman who has done her own amazing research and her own amazing courses, and I'll let her tell you all about it. But it's Suki Stone. She's the CEO and founder and creator of the only literacy program that teaches adults and children how to read in 14 days or less. Isn't that phenomenal? Teaches adults and children how to read in 14 days or less. And you know what? She's on the phone with us right now. You there, Suki?
I sure am.
Yay! Congratulations on you got a new book out too, right?
I do. It's titled Rethink Reading Strategies. As a educator for over 30 years, I've worked with children that struggled, special ed kids, learning disabled and emotionally disturbed children, and did not have success after a certain period of time. And so I actually created my own literacy program to help them learn to read. And what I found was that all of these children, in spite of their disabilities, were very smart. And in fact, I talked to them about being brilliant and gave them new vocabulary words to describe their skills. And
that's phenomenal right there. If one of the things I talk about all the time, Happiness Agenda and otherwise, is how we had this wonderful saying when I was growing up. It was, sticks and stones will hurt my bones, but words will never harm me. And I'm not sure who put that out originally, and I think it was designed so that we would get past any hurtful words. But the truth of the matter is, sticks and stones will break our bones, but they will heal. And the words people use on us stick with us into our psyche and our minds forever, and creating or giving us new terms about ourselves that we can actually take in. Quit telling the old stories and start telling new stories. And that's what sounds like, Suki, you did, right?
Yes, I absolutely did. I teach them that when they are reading and learning to read and improve, that they are brilliant. So I do an affirmation that says, I am brilliant, or I am a brilliant reader. And I had this child stand up, and he said it very, slow, softly, I am a brilliant reader. Yeah. And I said, I want you to say it with conviction. And he said, I am a brilliant reader. And it just changed his whole demeanor of his face. And he just became such a wonderful reader from inside.
Yeah.
That he really learned to actually work the system that I created, and he loved words. I teach the thesaurus, so I have a real short story for you about a child that really loved the words in the thesaurus, and I said to her, why don't you share some of those words with your classroom? And she appeared in the classroom and gave this word that the teacher said, how do you know that? And she says, I have my own Roget's International Thesaurus.
Oh, cool.
And then she paused and said, and I have a doctor. So they really, really enjoy feeling good about their success. And that's what I try and do with the children and adults as well. It becomes a lifetime change rather than just a tutoring service.
Most of us don't really understand that. I mean, because we're not around them or we're not affected by them, we don't understand how many people don't know how to read as adults. Any idea what the percentage is?
Yeah, it's very high. It's very, very high. It's 45% of our population as adults have below a fourth grade reading level.
Well, that kind of explains why we've got the TV shows we've got, right?
Correct.
Because we design them for that level. That's right, yeah. So the words we use are certainly different for fourth graders than what they would be for 12th graders. So that also explains the vocabulary used on so many of the shows.
Right, exactly. And I think the shows have, and I don't think this term, but I think they have like a dumbed down perspective. Gotcha. Where they're looking at people understanding more than they are the sophistication of the shows or the, So, but I have done some incredible work with some adults that came to me. My specialty has always been children because I was a school teacher before I got my nonprofit status and became actually an entrepreneur of business. But a man came to me, he was 32, and he didn't know how to write. He wanted to be a manager of Enterprise Rent-A-Car. Oh. And I taught him how to spell. And he told me that his boss told him he would never be a manager because he didn't have the spelling skills or the writing skills to actually evaluate his sales force.
Sure.
And so during my program, he told his boss that he was taking my class. And he canceled one of my classes and said his boss offered him an opportunity to interview for a manager's job, and he got the manager's job before he finished my class.
That's a really cool story. Now, that's a good story right there. But, wow, 45% below fourth grade level, that's phenomenal. I don't think most of us have a clue about that because we're not surrounded by, and you wouldn't know if somebody knew how to read or write anyway because we have a nice conversation, with somebody, but we don't ever have to worry about, making an X on the line with them most of the time. So that's incredible statistic that we have that information.
Or having them, I was going to say, or having them read a contract, or having them do something that requires some reading skills.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure. I even can read a contract though. The legalese that we've got in today's contracts is just absurd. Even the smallest of contracts. When I do a coaching contract with somebody, I tell them the basic contract is 1 page long. It's 1 page because here's what it amounts to is I'll tell you what I'm going to do for you. You tell me that you're going to follow what I do. I ask you to do so that you can achieve the goals set together. And if you agree with that, you have 30 days to cancel if you're unhappy. I have 30 days to cancel if I'm unhappy. Sign the contract. And people look at me like, well, isn't there more to it than this? And I go, no. As you and I were talking before, Suki, is if we're people of our word, that's what counts in today's world. And my word says, I don't need 22 pages of a contract to say I'm going to do what I tell you I'm going to do. And that's phenomenal to me that people, we have so much legalese that the big words and the convoluted words that we can learn how to spell and do the basics in 14 days. Now tell me, in reality, you ran into the problem of not being able to use the right resources and get the kids to learn. So how did you start developing your program? Oh, wait, before I do that, there are some people who are going to jump into this, probably started listening early, and they're just tell us how to get a hold of Lady. I'm here. I need to go. So tell us how to get in touch with you, would you, Suki?
Well, I certainly will. My website is www.youread.org, O-R-G. So it's .org as a nonprofit. And they can look me up through my book, which sells Amazon, Rethink Reading Strategies.
That's what it's called, Rethink Reading Strategies?
Rethink Reading Strategies,
okay,
right.
And that's the one that teaches us how to read in 14 days?
Well, it gives the philosophy behind it and some hints and some easy things for parents that are raising children, even adults that need some more extra skills that they can adopt themselves.
Okay, but in order for us to learn that, how to read in 14 days, or someone to learn how to read, they really have to work with you, right?
Correct.
Okay, that's a course
Correct.
that you offer that will help them learn. Good. Okay, as long as we get that clarified.
Correct. And my goal is to train teachers to work in businesses so that corporations would have the Stonebridge Academic Center in order for their employees' kids or even their clients' kids to be able to have the reading skills.
That's
the goal.
That's right, and that's something if we can get that word out for you. Obviously, there's lots of companies, there's lots of organizations, there's lots of manufacturing plants who have people who might have children who are struggling, or maybe they're struggling themselves. But in the long run, you've got kids who are struggling, and most teachers really don't know how to deal with that, do they?
No, they don't, because it's a completely different thing. Right today, even in the 21st century, we're still using reading programs that we were using in the 1900s, and they're not working with these children that have disabilities and they have learning problems, or they have emotional problems because they have learning problems. My program, everything is based on what they already know.
See, that is so cool.
Knowledge. They come in with their own knowledge.
Yeah, that's really crucial. Suki said it really well right then. Let's go back and talk about it briefly, which is they have learning problems. They have behavioral problems because they have learning problems. In other words, they get frustrated, they get angry, they get uptight. They can't learn. They blame themselves. They think they're responsible, so therefore they act out and they create problems. Right?
Correct. And they get bullied because they begin to read and they just fail at reading, but they fail in front of their peers. And so they get bullied, and there are things that happen to them. And the teachers in today's education are still teaching the same way that they did in, the early, 50s and 60s, 1950s and 60s, with the programs that are not working.
Yeah.
And not effective. And so I created this program with basically the research help. It's research-based.
Yeah.
And my mentor was a Brazilian educator, Dr. Freire, that taught 450 migrant workers to read in 45 hours.
Wow. Yeah. Oh, that's phenomenal.
They overthrew the government, so they kicked him out for teaching people to read. They didn't want these migrant workers to be independent.
Sure. And that is such a phenomenal thought, isn't it? That governments, that leadership doesn't want people to be better. We always think, even in the United States, I think the government wants us to be better. The government wants to make sure that, that they have all the programs for education and stuff. But there's so much bureaucracy and so much hassle on that we very seldom get anything truly accomplished that can lead to great change.
Right. And for many years, Steve, I want to sort of share, especially if educators are listening to the podcast, for many, many years, we always talked about school reform. And there's a very big percentage of children that are below basic level, below basic level, and they might come from different ethnic groups. And my goal in my program is really bridging that gap. I don't want there to be a gap. And my program, as a permanent solution in the 14 days or less, actually gives these kids lifetime skills, so they go on and do whatever they want in their life.
See, now I want to take your program just so I can learn all about it. It really is a phenomenal thought that you can teach somebody to read in 14 days or less. I hope you can apply that to a foreign language here soon, so that I can actually learn to speak Spanish. Because everybody claims that, and then I take their course, and about 5 days into it, I can't speak a word yet. So I'm always struggling myself with that.
Actually, though, speaking of speaking Spanish, I have worked with a child with someone who is completely bilingual. So I'm not completely bilingual, but I have taught a mentor who is completely bilingual. And the children actually learn to read in Spanish, but they also learn to read in English because the story is translated into English.
Wow.
So they're learning to read, but they're also learning English at the same time.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. How come everybody isn't jumping on this program? It should be tons of people jumping on. You should be rich already with everybody wanting to jump all over this. I tell you,
it's all in God's hands, and I have to be connected to the right people that hear my message and that want to sponsor the program and want to learn, how to teach it, so that I can, duplicate myself across the country.
Oh, sure.
I don't want to just stay in California. I want to get it across the country so that I can
absolutely.
really influence all of the kids that are out there, as well as some of the adults. Sometimes businesses know that some of their adults are poor readers. They're not non-readers, but they're poor readers, but they don't want to talk about it. And maybe with an academic center in their business, they could offer that possibility of improving the skills of the adults.
So tell me about the academic center that you think they should have in there. I mean, what does that consist of? I mean, do they have to hire new employees and put up a separate library?
They have to hire a teacher. Yeah, they would have to hire a teacher. And that teacher, I would help hire that teacher, and then they would actually be sponsoring the academic center, Stonebridge Academic Center.
Okay, so let me back up.
Sponsorship would be nonprofit.
Yeah, but let me back up. You say they have to hire a teacher. So I taught college for 7 years. Would I be hireable, or does it have to be a teacher with current credentials?
Probably a teacher with current credentials. But if you wanted to learn the program and you had some teaching background, I would be happy to teach you. Okay,
so how then? I mean, it's a proprietary program, so the teacher comes in, and then you furnish them with all of the materials so that he or she could teach that?
Right, but I don't actually furnish it that way. I actually work with the teacher and do a workshop, and then I work with that teacher. I call it a triad. So on a normal thing where you're teaching a skill or teaching something as a business person, and you want your people that are attending that to go back to their companies and to practice whatever you taught them, the people in their companies are not with you. So they just go back and they teach it. In my program, I actually sit with the teacher and the child, or the teacher and the adult.
But if you're looking for this to go across the United States, you can't be the one who covers all these bases. So how would you...
No, that's why I would teach the teachers, and they would be like, like the different areas of the country. So they would then be out there teaching other teachers.
Gotcha. So in other words, it's like for me, coaching. I hire a new coach. I take them under my wing. Actually, I take them under my wing for 12 months. But if I was going to synopsize this down, I teach my coaches how to work with small businesses, and then they would take the knowledge they garnered from me as well as the programs that I offer and go out and teach that to small businesses. Is that the way that might work? Okay.
That's correct.
I get
it. And then one of the things that would happen is if they were in those businesses, so let's just say Google, who provides it, wonderful company, they provide a daycare for their employees. So if they decided that they wanted to provide a literacy, I don't want to call it tutoring, but, just literacy help for improvement, and they would fund it, and their funding would be to the nonprofit, because I'm a nonprofit. So they would basically get tax deduction for that. And then the teacher would come in, they would have a center which would be available for the their employees' kids.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask a question here, because right now Suki's on the happiness agenda. That's what you guys have all tuned into. But Suki, because of how this might be affecting on business, would it be okay if I also put this in my business podcast, which is the Harlequin Business Show? Could I also duplicate it there?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. And speaking of your happiness agenda, one of the things that I loved about your title is that my happiness comes from all my kids, and I have to say, including my adults, all the people that now have the foundation for literacy to actually share their own happiness with other people.
Oh, wow.
So whatever they want to do, they end up doing.
Yeah. Can you imagine how if in our real lives, so for everybody listening out there, for our real lives, if we could truly affect the lives of the people around us in such a way as to, like, the basics. Can you imagine not being able to read last month, and this month you can now read and write? and what a change in your life that would make. What a tremendous difference it would make to your whole life. So wouldn't it be cool if we could affect other people that way, in such a monumental fashion? So I envy Suki and her ability to be able to change lives. I mean, I change some lives. I certainly do it with my my motivational speaking, and I do it with my courses that I offer, but probably not to the effect that she's experiencing now, and certainly will go on to experience as these programs get placed in companies and corporations and other, around the world.
Right. And the thing about this is these kids have suffered for a long time, and now all of a sudden they see that they have the ability, because it comes from their knowledge, to learn to read. So one of my examples was from a 9th grader who was reading at 3rd grade level, but he didn't want to go to college. His dream job was to be a mechanic for high-end cars. He wanted to put motors into Rolls Royces and Jaguars and Alfa Romeo cars, all your high-end cars.
Yeah.
And he started my program, and he said, oh my gosh, he stopped, like in the middle of the first lesson. And it was like, are you okay? And he said, oh, Dr. Stone, I am so okay. I know that I'm going to be able to read and attend school to be a mechanic for my ideal job, my dream job.
See, amazing. Yeah, that had to just warm your heart to know. Yeah, just beyond. Now, do you stay in touch with most of your students? Do you converse with them? Do you have them on a mailing list and stuff?
I wish I had. No, I really haven't done that. I do have some students that I've kept in touch with. I had a 1st grader who, you're learning to read in 1st grade, but there was no way. She was very severe dyslexic, and I contacted her after the program was over. She was in 12th grade when I talked with her, graduating from high school and attending college to be a pediatric oncologist.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so
now, I guess I didn't realize you've had this program in place for how many years?
I created it in 1981.
Wow. And yet we've never heard of it.
Nonprofit, right? No, I became nonprofit in 1999.
But still, that's phenomenal to me that we haven't heard of it. We need to get you some publicity. We need to get you in places where people are going to stand up and take notice and work with you.
I would love that.
Oh,
I absolutely love that. I sort of waited for God's time, Steve. And
that's right.
That was the hardest part for me. It was like some of the people weren't in place, and then people like Leah and people like Debbie Allen and people like you that said, what do you do? Let me help you get that out there.
Now she's talking about Leah Woodford.
Haven Woodford, right?
Yep.
Right.
And she runs the SmartFem. Yeah, she runs the SmartFem network. So if you wanted to go to smartfem.com, I think it is. Certainly a mover and a shaker in the industry, along with Debbie Allen, who's a phenomenal speaker and teacher, trainer. And we all got together in Las Vegas earlier this year. I'm trying to think what it is, or late last year. It was late last year, wasn't it?
Last year.
And really had a nice. That's how I met Suki at this thing. And we're coming up with a new one coming up in sometime in early 2019. So if you folks would like to participate, we always would love people who want to come and learn at these events. So certainly get in touch with SmartFem and Leah Woodford that Suki and Steve recommended that you come and partake. But if you're an author, especially if you're an aspiring author, we'd love to have you. If you're a podcaster, that's when we're working on getting new podcasters into that group and organization, as well as writers. We're looking for those authors and writers to really make a difference so that we can help you grow and expand your business. And that's why Suki's on the show, too, is we want all the more attention paid to the people who really have something to say.
Well, and I'm changing. We're all changing lives, Steve. I'm not going to say that, but I'm doing it in a different way. And my own creation of my program was because there was nothing out there like that. So that's how, I'm changing lives. And I really, really would love support from the business and industry and from entrepreneurs and anyone that really has a passion for literacy and would like to help children and adults improve their literacy. And I appreciate the podcast. It's a new experience for me, but I love talking to you. It's amazing.
Thank you.
You're a wonderful interviewer, and I just want to acknowledge that this is a very happiness experience today. So it's part of your agenda, and I am thrilled that I'm enjoying this opportunity to just chat with you and talk to the general public about not just what I do, but about how important literacy is.
I can't even imagine how people, and you've seen TV shows and you've seen movies, and I can't imagine how stressful it must be for people who quote unquote fake it, through on their literacy issues, especially as adults. They go through their whole lives faking that they understand and comprehend. And boy, can you imagine every time something had to be done, read, documented, that you either had to get somebody who understood that you couldn't read to that level, or you had to fake the fact that you were reading it. And again, the stress that would be in your life that would really, just drive you crazy, I would think.
Well, I have an example. All my examples are positive. We looked at the negativity part of it, so I've got to tell you. I met this woman, and I met her through a Tony Robbins event. We were there together, and we talked, and I decided I would, follow all the stuff that Tony had, and one of the experiences was we had to stand up, and the person next to us had to give us a shoulder rub. Okay. And I turned and said to this woman, "Oh my gosh, I've never felt these hands like that." And I said, "What do you do for a living?" And she said, "Well, I'm a masseuse."
Oh,
and
nice.
Then she asked me, and I said, "Well, I was a literacy specialist." And she said, "I'm very interested in your literacy." And I didn't really know why. And then after the whole weekend was over, she said, "Suki," she said, "I have to tell you, I need your help. I was going to leave the seminar because I couldn't read Tony's 3-ring binders, and his people helped me read, but I need to learn to read. Will you teach me?"
Holy cow.
And she explained to me that when she did her massage, she had a business, but she wasn't making any money because she didn't have a certificate because she was unable to go to masseuse school because she couldn't read.
Wow.
And after my program, she enrolled in a massage class, and she completed class and got her certificate so she could get between $60 and $120. Before that, she could get just, whatever anybody wanted to give her.
Sure.
Sometimes they gave her $1. Sometimes they gave her $5.
Yeah, because it was voluntary. That's right. She couldn't have a quote-unquote business. That's right, because it's illegal to do that.
Right.
Wow.
So now that she had a certificate because she could read. And the other part to that really, it brought tears to my eyes, was she was in a woman's Bible study. And the preacher would ask them to read a Bible passage every Sunday. And she didn't have the words, she couldn't read the words in the passage. All the women helped her. And she said, "Suki, I have to tell you," because I asked her, "How's your Bible study?" She said, I couldn't read anything. She said, "The last time I went to my Bible study, I could read everything except 3 words.
Wow.
And that was really phenomenal.
That is phenomenal.
So my program helped her really, perfect her reading so that she could earn a living.
Now, you ready to take the next step? Now you need to give me her information so I can call and make sure that she's profitable in her business, because that's something I can do. So we could tag team her and really make that.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That would be. I do have, because she asked me. This is kind of interesting. I didn't send her my book, and so she gave me a phone number and an address, so that I could send her my book. So I would be happy to give you Julie's number.
Yeah, that'd be great. Really, let's see if we can make a world of difference in her life. That's right. That'd be great. Yeah. So anyway, that's when you think about how the world is, and when you think about how our lives are. Most people listening to this podcast probably can read pretty well, no big problems. But there's probably a few people out there who really want to get your information. So again, how would they get in touch with you, Suki?
Well, they would get in touch with me through my website, which is www.youread.org, or they can call me at 858-487-7889.
Wait, repeat that for me. Oh. Repeat it again, because now they just picked up their pencils and they're trying to really write that number down. So say it again for us.
858-487-7889. That's the number that they can reach me at.
Cool.
And then I do have a business Facebook, and it's youread.org. Facebook.
So if they go on, so if they go on Facebook and type in "You Read," it'll probably pop up 2 or 3 things, but one of them is the you.org, and that's the one they want.
That's the one they want, right?
Okay.
And they'll see my I'm hoping they'll see my picture.
Yeah, but they don't know what you look like off of the podcast. Which reminds me, on your youread.org, because I try and put somebody's picture when I post this out to the web. I try and put a picture on the lead, so like on I forget, Apple iTunes. Hopefully it'll be your picture. But do you have a picture on your website?
I do.
Okay, so I'll just grab it off of that, and then I always put.
You can put that.
Yeah, I always put some. Well, no, I'll just take it off that, because what I do is I try and use your website thing as the lead, and then I say, like I'd say Suki Stone, you can read, and then I'll put on there, and she's on our podcast, The Happiness Agenda. So that's how I normally post that out. So that'll be cool. That'll be really cool.
Great.
And I told Suki I'd have her on about 30, 35 minutes. I know we're pushing 40, I think, now, but it's been such a fascinating conversation about how we can help other people and how many people really need her help in order to grow and become more than they've ever been. And that's what the Happiness Agenda and my other podcast, Harlequin Business Show, are all about, helping you be more than you've ever been before. And if we would all reach out and help each other be more. Don't say, you've never done that before, why take the risk, don't try that. The answer is always want to be more, always help somebody else with becoming more. Encouragement, words of affirmation, all those great things that will help you change the people around you to become even better. Suki, I want to appreciate and thank you very much for being on the show. You have any last words of wisdom for us?
Just be aware that your personal knowledge really is the foundation for your dreams and everything that you want to do to come through. So whatever it is that you do, use what you have. Make sure that you get the right mentors. And I can tell you from my conversation with Steve, he's got to be a fantastic coach. So I acknowledge what you do. I acknowledge your podcast, and that would be the power words. Just believe in yourself, because you have all the skills that are necessary.
I think that's phenomenal. With that, we will wrap up this episode, and I sure appreciate it. Like I said, we're going to be putting this on the business podcast, the Harlem Business Podcast, but right now we're wrapping up the Happiness Agenda, and I hope you all have a blessed